Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories, and welcome to the month of Spooky 2018. During this month, you can expect the unexpected, hear the unbelievable, and witness stories that stretch the imagination. It is my hope that we chill you a little and thrill you a little. On today's program, we have a classic. Not because we have a classic old-time radio story, but we have a very classy guy to talk about it. For the 8th time in 8 years, Jim Harold returns with Old Time Horror number 8. Included in the show is a story called The Walking Dead, which has no connection with its modern-day counterpart on AMC. It actually first hit the airwaves in 1944. After that, Jim and I will talk about all things zombie, so make sure you stick around for that. But as you know, we cannot have a podcast without our special 5-Minute Mystery.
Another 5-Minute Mystery.
This 5-Minute Mystery is being brought to you by Jim Harold Media, LLC, the home to everything from the spooky to crime scene investigations. If you want to learn more, head to jimharold.com. There you will find the answers you seek, or at least a whole bunch of new questions. And now, this week's mystery.
Hello. Yes, this is Dr. Fangfist. You again. This is outrageous. You just can't keep killing me each week. I'll not stand for it. Now you listen to me. You've shot me, then blown me up, run me over with cattle. What else can you possibly do?
Hey, Chief. It's him again, and well, this time you gotta see this for yourself. If I had to guess, I'd say it was a chainsaw. No recording this time, but there is a sealed envelope here. I'll have one of the boys bring it right over to you.
I received this email from Tracy Jensen in Omaha, Nebraska. Tracy writes, "Hello, Ron. I love the podcast and wanted to share my scary story. I am a mail carrier in Nebraska, and sometimes we have to work some strange hours. One evening I was working late because of the volume of mail I had to deliver that day. It was in December, and the sun had already gone down. I was driving along an unlit street that only had one mailbox at the end. I pulled up to it, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone running towards me at an unbelievable speed. I turned just in time to see a freaky face staring at me through the closed window. It vanished as fast as it appeared and was gone. I looked around and saw no one. I shoved the mail in the box and tore out of there. 2 weeks later, I got an end-of-service notice for that address. It appears the resident had died." Tracy Jensen, Omaha, Nebraska. Wow, Tracy, that story sent a chill down my spine. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Wow.
Well, the note didn't help much. I don't think we're gonna solve this case, Chief. The only thing I can think to do is call in a specialist. Do you still have Sherlock's number?
Sherlock Holmes, huh? Well, I hope it works for them because I didn't see anything that could help solve these repeated crimes against Dr. Fangfest. Will this case remain unsolved? Only time will tell. My thanks to Tracy Jensen for sending in that sealed note.
What's that you say?
Well, I have to say our guest for this show is Jim Harold. He has been a friend, mentor, and client to me for the past 8 years. Jim is among a handful of pioneers of the podcast medium. His programs have stood the test of time, and the Paranormal Podcast and Campfire remain among the most popular in their genre. Jim has developed a loyal following that spans the globe. In addition to his free podcast at jimharold.com, Jim also hosts a series of premium podcasts on the supernatural and related subjects at jimharoldplus.com. I highly recommend that you check him out if you haven't done so already. So it is my pleasure to say, I want to welcome to the podcast for the 8th year in a row, Mr. Jim Harold.
Wow, we're making a habit of this. Hi, Ron. How you doing?
Can you remember 8 years ago, Jim?
You know, it's always been a lot of fun. I remember the first time you asked me, and I just thought it was so cool because I don't even think you knew at the time. I had been a fan of old-time radio going back way before I ever podcast. So it's like, this is so serendipitous. You get somebody out there interested in spooky stuff, interested in old-time radio, and he wants me to guest on the show. So I don't remember the show itself per se, but I do remember being asked and thinking, how cool is that?
Well, it was show number 25 for me. And as we speak, this is going to be show 351.
Time flies, man. I'm telling you. I marvel that we've been doing this and we've both been podcasting as long as we have. It's just like, I figured it out the other day, and I've basically been podcasting for over a quarter of my life, which is weird. But it's true.
Well, and I can tell you something I don't think I've ever told you before. But when I contacted you to be on the show, the first thing I thought is he'll never do it. He's too famous.
We've dissuaded you of that.
The second thing was, I don't know if I hit it, but I was so darn nervous that first show. I was just petrified. I thought, I'm going to screw this up and he's never going to want to do this again. And I had myself so psyched up that I'm not even sure how I got through the first show. And the other day I listened to it. Yeah, it didn't sound half bad.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that hopefully we both improved over the years. You know, the more you do this, I don't remember you being nervous. I thought you did a fine job every time I've been on. And it just, again, was just like, this is so cool. Because that's one of the great things about the internet and about podcasting is, even if you like something that is relatively obscure, like old time radio, which, you know, there's a lot of people who like it, but I mean, the average person, you know, they might vaguely know there was someone called The Shadow. You know, that's about it. But there's thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, I would guess, who love old time radio and were brought together by the internet and also, you know, what you do. And I just think it is so neat and I think it even extends to things like my campfire show. You get like-minded individuals and you can build those communities online. And that's one of the real, you know, we have plenty of curses with the internet these days, particularly with all the political stuff on both sides and the name calling things. But one of the blessings of the internet, kind of people who are kind of nerds for things like this, which I consider myself, we can unite and enjoy our nerddom in our topic of choice.
So very true. And I couldn't have said it better myself. It's funny. It wasn't too long ago. I was talking to somebody about The Shadow. Right. And they said, "Oh, isn't that movie with Alec Baldwin?"
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing about old time radio. When I started listening to it, now I was, I'm approaching the big 50. I'll admit it. It's bearing down on me here. But when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, I was a big TV fan. And I kind of caught the tail end of all those greats like Jack Benny and George Burns and Dean Martin and people like that. And I would see these various things they would do on their shows. And I think, boy, that's really original. And then when I started listening to old time radio in earnest in the early 2000s on the internet, I'm like, wait a minute. They stole that from that radio show 20 years before the TV show I was watching, or 30 years before the TV show I was watching in the 70s. So the thing is that it really gives you an appreciation for the history. And these people, in many cases, were doing this live. They didn't have the technology that we have, but yet they were able to create these little pieces of art. And wow, what skill and what talent it took. And it's sad that it's not appreciated more. I mean, I think classic television, there's an appreciation for it. Classic movies, there's certainly appreciation for it. Classic music. But old time radio, except for the internet, I think would be totally lost to the mists of time. And these great artists would be totally forgotten. So thank goodness there's people like you, Ron, who are keeping the flame alive and reintroducing this to new generations.
And and it's a pleasure to do so. What old time radio did for me was it opened up basically my mind, because my first real connection with it was CBS Radio Mystery Theater.
Me too, yeah.
And if you remember, E.G. Marshall had a way of speaking that made you feel what you were hearing, even when he was just narrating.
The fear you can hear.
And so it made me lay down, close my eyes, and listen. And I think today that's why I'm a good writer. I think it's why I have the ability to tell stories, is because during that, and this is live, I mean, I listened when he was still on, which was,
me too,
I think about 1978 to about 1984, somewhere around in there. And it was just a very good time for me to be listening to these stories. And of course, they were horrific and they were downright scary at times, but they fed the mind, and the mind then had to fill in the gaps. And that's what's missing with our CGI and our TVs and even let's even say our Chromebooks. I mean, we are visually stimulated all of the time. Right.
Well, I worked in traditional radio for better part of about 15 years on the business side. But I had a boss who said, and he was an interesting guy because he was the owner of the station, but he had also been a very famous, in his circle in classical music, had been a famous announcer. And he also hosted a comedy show. And there's an old skit where, what's his name? Stan Freberg.
Great name.
Who basically was a comedian. His son later did the Dude, You Got a Dell computer thing. That people might remember that from about 20 years ago. But Stan Freberg, he was famous in the early 60s, very famous. And he did this audio piece where he turned Lake Michigan into a banana split. And the idea was, try to do that. I guess you could now with CGI, but try to do that with your movie. It'd be very, very expensive, but through the theater of the mind, you can create almost anything. And I think that one thing that makes the shows like the one we're going to hear tonight so suspenseful, it's not only what you hear, but it's what you don't see and what your mind projects. And sometimes what your mind projects can be more frightening and more horrific than anything anybody could come up with.
Well, I agree with 100% with what you said, with one caveat. And Have you looked at the prices of doing CGI these days?
Yeah, I guess that would be pretty frightening too. No, but I mean, the average filmmaker couldn't do that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the big studios certainly might be able to turn Lake Michigan into a banana split, but it still bears repeating that you can do so much more with audio. And I've toyed with the idea of doing some video, and I played around with it because that was really my background in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and did it, and it's like, I just felt like audio is my medium. I may still do some video, and I still have to release that video, but audio is for me. And it's nice because I can sit in my jammies and do it too. But audio is my thing.
I just absolutely am enamored with the ability that they had back then, with the limited number of tools they had back then. Trying to make a banana split back then, the only thing they had was stop motion. Imagine doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just a great medium. And it really is great because I think that a new generation is rediscovering audio, whether it's audiobooks, whether it's podcasts. And there are different kinds of podcasts. There's interview podcasts like my podcasts, and you've got these storytelling podcasts now and all the true crime stuff that people seem to really enjoy. Even though the tales can be horrific and very sad, I think they also have a good purpose to them too, maybe as a cautionary tale, those types of things. Or to audio drama, the new version of OTR. And I think it's great that we're seeing a renaissance in that. So it really is a kind of a second golden age of audio. I
agree. I think the latest numbers have something like 200,000 podcasts on iTunes alone. I mean, it's kind of I
think it's actually 550,000 is what I heard.
550,000.
Yes. Now that includes some that have quote pod faded or things like that. Heck, I've had shows that I stopped doing, some of my less popular ones, but still, and there's more and more coming every day. And honestly, and I'm sure you're noticing this, the bar is getting higher and higher, and it kind of challenges us as independent content creators to do better and to come out with better work. So it's like, oh my gosh, this big company's getting into it. I better make sure that my sound is as good as it can be, or whatever the case may be. So
exactly,
I think more and more it's driving everybody to do better, which is a good thing, I think.
Well, Jim, and you did it right. Let's be honest. You started in 2005 when people went pod wet.
Exactly.
And
that's exactly what they said.
One of my favorite stories you tell is when you first started, you were able to pick the name, The Paranormal Podcast. Well, my gosh, what a name for a podcast. It is, I mean, search engine wise, you can't get any better.
Right. No, I was very fortunate to get that. And it was just, like I said, 2005, I said, I want a podcast. What do I want a podcast on? I said, well, the paranormal, because I love this topic genuinely. It's not just do it to be successful or whatever, because the truth was I never thought this was going to turn into a full-time job, which it did. Never thought that was going to happen. But nevertheless, I said, this will be great. I'll be interviewing people about these subjects. I'll have the secrets of the universe figured out in about 6 months. And it didn't turn out that way. If you didn't notice, I have more questions today than I ever had. But it's been a blessing. I've gotten to make many friendships like the one we have, and get to speak to people I would never get to talk to. I had a TV podcast for a while, classic TV podcast. And I may bring that back someday because I really enjoyed it. It wasn't super popular, but I got to interview Ed Asner. Now, maybe you're younger, that name doesn't ring a bell. He was on Mary Tyler Moore as Lou Grant and had his own show by the same title. If you're younger, you may know him from the movie Up. He played the older gentleman, the voice actor for that. Man's won more Emmys in television history than anyone. So he's essentially the most accomplished television actor in history, and just a nice guy. And the thing is that me, little Jim Harold, in my little den here in Ohio, I get to talk to Ed Asner. Are you kidding me? So my point is that I get to do so many things. It's like a superpower, I get to talk to so many neat people about so many different things. I have a true crime podcast that I've had for several years, which is not nearly as popular as those big ones. But just yesterday, I got to talk to the person who had the #1 podcast in the United States and a journalist who did a show called Dr. Death. And I got to talk to her at length about her thoughts on true crime podcasting, about the show, about the case. I've interviewed Pulitzer Prize winners. I've interviewed people in the supernatural that are legends, like the late Brad Steiger or Stanton Friedman on UFOs, the man who basically broke the Roswell case. I got to speak to Jesse Marcel Jr., who was the son of the man who was the first military officer to see the Roswell wreckage. I mean, what other line of work would I be able to sit here and talk to these people? You know, I can't think of one. Plus, I get to talk to all the great listeners all over the world who have great spooky stories. Just got off the phone, maybe, or off the electronic pipes or whatever you want to call them here, with a listener in Paris who had a spooky story. Paris.
Oh, wow.
I just love it. We're so blessed to be able to do that.
And Jim, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you about this, because it fills one with hope, knowing that you're out there, and if you can do it, anybody can do it.
That's right.
And that was my motivation. Well, 8 years ago, almost to the day now. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You know, that's a long time. I mean, I'm like, it's crazy that I've been doing this for a few years more, but 8 years is a long time in this game, because I see a lot of these big companies, they'll get in, and then 3 months later, they're like, well, we're going to move on and do more videos or something. Yeah. And I won't mention the company, but there's a huge company that did almost literally that just recently. And the thing is that to do it for 8 years, that shows that you have a real dedication, and I applaud you for it.
Well, thank you for that. So, Jim, this is Old Time Horror with Jim Harold, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't do some horror.
I think you're right.
Now, I'm going to tell you the name of the story that we're going to be listening to. It's called The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
Yeah, and you probably thought of the TV show that's really popular right now?
I sure did, yeah.
Well, let me just ask you a trivia question here, Jim. When do you think that this story, The Walking Dead, first aired?
Let's see. It's old time radio. So let's say 1951.
Try 1944.
Oh.
May 16th to be exact, and it is called The Walking Dead. Now, I'm going to tell you that it is so much better than the show The Walking Dead, and I know I'm going to get emails about that. I'm sorry. It's just an opinion. But this thing is frightening, to put it mildly. It's from a series, Creeps by Night, and I know you have some information about Creeps by Night, something that you found out.
Yeah, I was consulting my encyclopedia of old time radio, which I think you have a copy as well. It's a big volume by John Dunning. If you're into this kind of thing, maybe you want to pick it up. But anyway, Creeps by Night was on the Blue Network, which was owned by NBC. And originally it was hosted by Boris Karloff, and you'll even hear that referenced in this show that we're going to listen to. But then they moved production, I believe, from the West Coast to the East Coast, and Boris Karloff went off stage, and on stage came Mr. X, the new host.
And Mr. X, we're not sure if he was anybody famous or not, but when you hear him introduced, listen carefully to what he says, because I'm going to say something about that after we listen to the show. So, without any further ado, are you in for a zombie story there, Jim?
Well, let's just say that I am ready. I've got my, what is it? Is it a silver bullet or is it a stake? I've got both of them ready if I need it.
I don't think either one of those work on zombies.
Oh, that's right. That's the wrong category. Vampires. All right. I'm ready.
All right. Well, as you can hear the music building up in the background, let's turn it over to not Boris Karloff and, of course, Mr. X.
We bring you Creep by Night. Blue Network presents the 13th in a series of dramatic explorations into the vast and unknown darkness of the human mind. Tonight, in the absence of Boris Karloff, who has been your host on this program of mystery, we take the opportunity to introduce the man who henceforth will serve as your guide and companion along the dark and often terrifying pathway of the unexplored. He will come to you only as a voice, since for reasons best known to himself, he prefers to remain anonymous. He stands before me now, ready to lead you into the dim and distant world beyond the realm of human understanding. Creep by Night presents its master of mystery, Dr. X. Good evening. I have been asked to serve as your master of mystery on these weekly pilgrimages into the unknown. To choose for you stories that peer deep into the tortured souls of men and draw aside the shadowy curtain of the mind. For the time being, I shall have to be known only as Dr. X, my identity cloaked in the very darkness of which we speak. Perhaps some of you will recognize my voice. If you do, I pledge you to secrecy. It will be my duty on this program to select for you stories that have been drawn from the mystery of life itself. From time to time, I will invite leading actors, men like Peter Lorre, Bela Lugosi, Edmund Gwenn, Basil Rathbone, and others, to participate in our dramatic explorations. But enough of talk. Join with me now as we see unfolded before us the weird chronicle of the walking dead. Let me take you to the Black Island of Haiti, deep in the Caribbean, to a coffee plantation some 40 miles from the city of Port-au-Prince. It is long after dark, and the night is hot and sultry, deadly quiet, save for the rhythmic beating of native drums off in the distance. At long intervals, a human voice cries out, rising above the drums like the dismal wailing of a lost soul. On the porch of a cottage adjoining the plantation office, a man stares out into the darkness, obviously waiting for something. Suddenly a car swings into the open gate, its headlights blazing. It pulls up before the cottage, and a gray-haired man, carrying a black bag, steps out. He mounts the steps, and the man waiting on the porch greets him.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
I'm Walter Craig, manager of the plantation.
Glad to know you, Mr. Craig. Sorry about being so late, but your call to the public health office somehow got lost in the shuffle. We've been under terrific pressure these last few days.
It doesn't... Doctor.
Too late, eh? One of your foremen, wasn't it?
Yes. He's still alive, but I don't think there's much you can do for him.
Well, I'll try. Where is he?
Across the road in that hut. But before you see him, I think I'd better tell you something about this.
Go ahead.
The man's name is LaRue. He's a Frenchman. He was released from the penal colony last April on probation. He came to me for a job, and I took him on because I needed help badly.
I see.
I put him in charge of a crew of native pickers, and he seemed to work out fine. He drove them hard, but he brought the crop in, and that's what counts. 10 days ago, one of his crew was found dead in the field. Someone had hit the poor beggar over the head with a bailing hook and split his skull. I questioned a couple of them, but, well, you know how they are, tight-lipped. All I could learn was that LaRue had an argument with the man just before the body was found. LaRue, of course, denied killing him. But that night, the Rada drums started to beat. They've been beating every night since.
Why?
The natives are certain LaRue murdered that beggar. They've been trying to put the hex on him. Hear that? It's the death wail. They know he's dying. They know it because they're killing him.
Oh, now, hold on, Craig. It's all right to talk about native customs and black magic, but you can't kill people by beating drums and wailing.
Doctor, How long have you been in Haiti?
6 months. But what difference does that make?
I've been on the island for 15 years, and I've learned one thing. There's a great deal that goes on down here that we know nothing about, that we can't explain.
Oh, now,
You can call it voodoo or black magic or anything you wish, but it's there. Let me tell you what happened.
Go ahead.
The more they beat those drums at night, the more LaRue drove the devils during the day. I warned him to lay off, but he laughed. The night before last, I caught 2 of them sprinkling graveyard dirt around his hut.
What's graveyard dirt?
They believe that dirt dug from around a corpse can maim and kill.
Oh, that's rubbish.
Maybe it is. But remember this. These natives are experts on poisons. They use dogwood root and bamboo dust, both deadly and with no known antidote. They use dried and powdered lizard, and some stuff they get out of the gallbladders of alligators. Maybe there is something in graveyard dirt. I don't know.
I doubt it very much.
Well, at any rate, after I caught those 2, I told LaRue he'd better get off the island if he knew it was good for him. He said he'd think it over. But they didn't give him a chance. This morning he couldn't get out of bed. His legs were paralyzed. I watched him all day, and the paralysis kept creeping up his body. He can scarcely breathe now, and he can't talk. All he does is mumble.
That's strange. Let's get a look at him.
I'd better tell Miss Carlyle you're here. She'll probably want to come along. Incidentally, she doesn't know anything about this except that LaRue is sick.
Who's Miss Carlyle?
Her father owned this plantation. He died back in the States last month. She came down a week ago to look things over. She's inside the cottage.
I'd rather not have a woman present when I examine him, Craig, if it can be helped.
Well, all right. Follow me. Wait a minute.
What's the matter?
The drums. They've stopped.
Oh, that's fine. They were beginning to get on my nerves. Come on.
No, wait. Do you hear anything? Low voices and the shuffling of feet?
No.
I do. I'd better get a flashlight.
Good Lord. What's that?
I thought something was wrong. They've surrounded LaRue's hut.
Mr. Craig! Mr. Craig!
That's Miss Carlyle. Excuse me a minute. I'm out here on the porch.
What's happening? All of a sudden, those drums and that chanting. Oh, there's someone with you.
It's Dr. Nelson of the Public Health Office in Port-au-Prince.
How do you do, Miss Carlyle?
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Doctor. What's going on out there, Mr. Craig?
The natives have surrounded LaRue's hut.
Why?
I don't know.
We'd better get to him, Craig, before they do some damage. That racket certainly can't help a dying man.
It's too late now.
Too late? What do you mean?
There's only one way to get along with the natives down here, Miss Carlyle. Don't interfere with them. Leave them alone.
That's all well and good, Craig, but you say a man's dying in that hut. I may be able to do something for him.
Of course, it's ridiculous. Order them back to their cabins, Mr. Craig.
They won't take orders now. They're wild with religious fervor. That chanting you hear goes back 1,000 years to when there were savages in the jungle.
Do you mean to say that you're going to stand
Just
by?
a minute, Miss Carlyle. I'll send the houseboy over to see what's going on. See inside?
Yes.
Solo! What's not?
I don't quite understand why you can't order them away, Mr. Craig.
You'll understand if you're down here for any length of time.
Here comes the houseboy. You call, mister?
Yes, Sobo. Go over to LaRue's hut and see what's happening.
No, mister, no can go. Him make Bokor chant. LaRue le mort. Bokor make l'amour.
What's he saying?
He says LaRue's dead. That's the Bokor chant we're hearing. They're going to take his body away. They're going to turn him into a zombie.
Oui, mister.
Of all the ridiculous nonsense.
What's a zombie? What are you talking about?
A zombie, Miss Carlyle, is a corpse that's been brought back to life. Down here, they call them a walking dead.
Do you mean to stand there and tell me that you believe that?
I don't believe or disbelieve, Miss Carlyle. All I know is that for centuries, the natives of Haiti have conducted weird rites. Sober here will tell you. Some of their ceremonies that make your hair stand on end.
Is that any reason for letting a man die with savage drums beating in his ears?
He's already dead.
How do we know?
They never used the Bokor chant except over a corpse.
Now, look, Mr. Craig, I own this plantation, and you're employed by me. And I insist that you order those natives away from their hut.
Don't lose your temper, Miss Carlyle.
I'm not losing my temper,
Listen
but
to me a moment. I've had 15 years of Haiti. 15 years of learning how to get along with native help. You're not in the United States now. This isn't Georgia or Alabama. It's the West Indies. You're a foreigner in a strange land. A land where the roots of voodoo and black magic grow deep and strong.
We know all that, Craig, but the fact still remains.
Just a minute, Doctor. I've seen men disappear on this island. Vanish off the face of the earth. They were men who laughed at native superstition just the way you're laughing at it.
Don't be stupid, Mr. Craig. Nobody's laughing. We're trying to save a man's life. Why did you call Dr. Nelson from Port-au-Prince if you didn't intend him to examine LaRue?
Yes. 40 miles is a long way to come to listen to native drums.
Neither of you can understand what I'm driving at, can you?
All I know is that a human being is lying in that hut, deathly sick. When I saw him this afternoon, he was in pitiful condition.
Nobody's denying that, Miss Carlyle.
Now you say he's dead, just because you hear some chanting and some drum beating, and you refuse to order those natives away so the doctor can examine
It isn't that I refuse, it's simply
Never
that...
mind. If you won't order them away, I will.
Miss Carlyle, come back. Miss Carlyle.
Craig, don't let her go over there alone.
Quick, Doctor, after her.
We'll never find her this way, Craig. We'd better go back to the house and phone for help.
We've got to find her. I don't trust those devils tonight.
I never saw anything like it. She ran across the road toward the hut, and before we could get to her, they swallowed her up like an avenging cloud. And then they were gone.
That's how they work.
Did they take LaRue's body with them?
Yes. Come on. We'll take a chance and bust in on their ceremony. I may be able to keep them in check.
Are you sure it's safe?
I'm not sure about anything. Keep that flashlight off. I don't want them to know we're coming. Let's go.
You know, it's always been a mystery to me why the authorities haven't stepped in to control these natives.
They've tried, but it doesn't work. This stuff is a religion with them.
That's no excuse for killing and kidnapping.
They only kill when someone has done them harm. LaRue had it coming to him.
What about Miss Carlyle?
She tried to interfere in one of their sacred ceremonies. Hold up a minute.
Huh?
I can see the light of their torches.
Where?
Over behind their shacks. See them flickering?
Oh, yes, I see them now.
Listen to the devil. It's enough to make your blood run cold.
That poor girl, if she's alive, must be out of her mind.
Let's get a little closer. And keep your eyes open. They move like ghosts in the darkness. You can't hear them until they're on top of you.
I certainly never expected to be stalking natives when I joined the public health service, I'll tell you that.
Let's go. We'll sneak up behind the shacks and see what they're doing.
All right. Incidentally, Craig, how many of them do you think there are?
About 200.
Good Lord.
Under ordinary circumstances, they're quiet and peaceful. Oh, I should have known better than to keep LaRue on the plantation. All this is his doing.
Well, it's too late now to blame anyone.
Over this way, Doctor. Crouch down. There. You can see him now. Hold up.
They're all kneeling in a circle, except the one in the middle. Who's he?
The Bokor, I guess. The head man.
Oh, they stopped chanting. Now what?
I don't know. Anything can happen. Don't move.
It's a new chant. He's asking me questions and I'm answering.
I've heard that before. I don't like the sound of it. Look, Doctor, you stay here. I'm going to walk right into that circle.
You better be careful, Craig. That automatic isn't going to be much help against 200 maniacs. They'll have to tear you to pieces.
I doubt it. Anyway, it's worth a chance.
Well, wait, I better go with you.
No, this isn't your affair. It's mine. In case I do run into trouble, get back to the house as fast as you can and put in a call to the police.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Wish me luck.
Good luck, Craig.
What was that? It's Sobo. He's crawling up behind us.
I wondered what had happened to him.
Go back out. Bad they here.
We've got to find the girl, Sobo, the missing lady.
No. Booker man make kill chant. Bad.
What you say?
That chant. It's the kill chant.
Go back. Sobo bring Missy lady.
You know where she is?
Sobo find.
Is she alive? Ask him.
Missy lady lives, Sobo.
Sobo find. Sobo bring back. Go.
All right. Come on, Doctor. Back to the house.
I tell you, Craig, I don't trust your houseboy. It's been almost an hour since he sent us back here. The drum stopped beating long ago.
He's always been trustworthy. He's been with me 15 years. Let's see if that phone works now. Maybe we can get through to Port-au-Prince.
What good will it do? They can't get here in less than an hour. And anyway, the whole police department couldn't tackle 200 of them.
Hello? There's something wrong with the line.
I've got a feeling we'll never see that girl again, Craig. Dead or alive.
I warned her not to interfere. Why didn't she listen to me? Why didn't she stay where she belongs, back in the States? How would I have enough trouble down here without this?
Now, don't lose your head, Craig. Take it easy. Raving and ranting isn't going to get us anywhere. I suggest we go out there and look for her again. The drums and the chanting have stopped. Maybe they'll calm down.
I'll go out. You get into your car and drive over to the Larimore plantation. It's about 10 miles from here on the road to Port-au-Prince. Get some help.
You think there's time for that? Where are your other foremen?
They're both in Port-au-Prince loading a coffee cargo. He would be away tonight of all nights. So anyway, I think that's the best plan. You go for help, and I'll see if I can locate Sobo.
Wait. I hear someone coming, Craig.
Don't open the door.
Why not?
I'll open it. I've got a gun.
Who is it? Who's out there?
I bring Mickey ready, but my...
Get the flashlight off the table, Doctor. It's my houseboy. He's got Miss Carlisle.
Good Lord.
Where is she?
Come on. Hurry her inside, Sobo.
It's nbsp.
Flash your light on the steps, Doctor.
Yes, I am.
Easy, Sobo, easy. Watch the steps.
The drums are beating again.
Let them beat. All right, carry her in, Sobo, and put her on the couch. Close the door, Doctor. Be sure it's locked.
Yes, all right.
Put her down, Sobo, carefully.
Let me look at her, Craig. In the meantime, get some water.
Water, Sobo.
You're all right now, Miss Carlisle. Just relax. Open my bag, Craig. You'll find some spirits of ammonia.
Right.
There now. Just relax.
There you are.
Oh, thank you. Now, just breathe deeply, Miss Carlisle. That's fine. Once more. There we are.
Here comes the water.
Oh, pour some in the glass.
Put it on the table, Sobo.
Feel better now, don't you?
Yes.
Here you are, Doctor.
Oh, thank you. Now, drink this, Miss Carlisle. Here, I'll hold your head up. There now. Just lean back.
Oh, it was horrible. Simply horrible.
I don't think you better talk for a while.
I've got to tell you. They put his body in a grave. An open grave.
A ruse?
Yes.
What happened when you ran across the road toward the hut?
I don't know. Suddenly they were surrounding me. I could see their teeth flashing in the darkness. I screamed, and that's all I remember until I woke up.
Yes?
I was lying on the ground. They were all kneeling around the grave. His body was in it. There was a torch burning, and one of them was chanting.
What's that?
Sobo says the man chanting was the Bokor. The one who makes the dead rise and become zombies.
Oh, I think we've had enough of native superstition tonight, Craig. Let's stick to the facts. How did you get away from them, Miss Carlisle?
Oh, no one was watching me. They were all watching the body in the grave. I crawled off in the darkness, and Sobo found me, brought me back here.
Yes, well, it's all over now. You had us worried for a while. I think you'd better try to get some sleep.
I can't sleep. All I keep seeing is that poor man's body.
Don't think about it.
But isn't there anything we can do? Isn't there some way of giving him a decent burial?
You might as well know what this is all about, Miss Carlisle. LaRue murdered one of the natives.
Oh.
Murdered him 10 days ago. They've been out to get him ever since in their own way. That's why the drums were beating every night. I told you it was their usual ceremony, just those enough to frighten you. But it was more than that. They were seeking revenge. And now they've got it.
You mean because he's dead?
That's only part of it. They're going through the zombie ritual now. That's what you saw at the open grave. According to their belief, they can bring LaRue back to life. Make him a living corpse who'll obey their orders.
Well, then why were they putting his body in a grave?
That's part of the ceremony. They bury him until midnight. Then the corpse rises as a zombie. That's right, isn't it, Sobo?
Why, it's the most ghastly thing I ever heard of.
And the most ridiculous.
I wouldn't be too sure about that, Dr. Nelson.
How long does the person remain a zombie?
As long as they want him to. The Bokor, the head man, controls that. They can stop it at will.
How?
You're asking me questions I can't answer, Doctor. Questions I wouldn't even attempt to answer. But this much I know. There are zombies on this island right now. How they came into being, I don't know. But they're here.
I don't believe it.
I hope I never have to prove it to you, Doctor.
Do these zombies talk and act like human beings?
No. It's a horrible thing to say, but they look dead. Their eyes are hollow and their skin has no color. They walk like people in a dream, heavy-footed and leaden. When they try to speak, all that comes out is weird mouthings. It isn't very pleasant, I can assure you.
And that's what they're going to do with LaRue?
I suppose so.
Why?
Revenge. As I told you, he not only killed one of them, but he drove them unmercifully. Once he's a zombie, they'll drive him, make him sweat. You'll become their slave. Do anything they order.
You know that's nonsense, Craig.
I'm not so sure, Doctor.
Have you ever seen a zombie, a living corpse?
Only once. And I never want to see another.
You mean there are actually people who've been raised from the dead?
Of course not. You can take it from me as a physician that death is final. Absolutely final.
Perhaps throughout the rest of the world. But not in Haiti.
Now listen, Craig. All you're managing to do is frighten this girl. I think perhaps the best thing, Miss Carlyle, would be for you to drive back into Port-au-Prince with me. It's just midnight. We'll be there at 1:30. How about it?
I don't know.
It's a good idea. Chances are nothing's going to happen, but... What is it, Tobo?
Step on porch.
What? He said he heard steps on the porch. Don't be alarmed. I don't hear anything.
Oui, monsieur. Step.
Where's the flashlight?
I have it here in my pocket.
Wait. Don't move.
What's that?
Tobo's right. Someone is on the porch. You stand over there with a flash, Doctor.
Right.
Get back, Sobo, I'll open the door.
No, monsieur. No.
Stand back, I said.
Craig, listen. Somebody.
No.
Doctor, take her into her bedroom and come back here. Hurry.
Yes, come, Miss Carlyle.
Please don't open the door.
Get her out of here, Doctor.
Come, my dear.
Sobo.
Monsieur.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Somebody.
I know, but we'll take care of him. Dr. Nelson.
Yes, I'm coming.
Stand back, Sobo. That's it.
Miss Carlyle, right now, Craig.
Good. Now, stand behind me a little to the left and keep that flashlight on the door.
You're not serious about it being a zombie, are you, Craig?
Whatever it is, it didn't sound human. All set now?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to open the door. Keep that light steady, Doctor.
The door is locked, you know. I locked it when we came in.
I know.
Craig, perhaps it might be better to...
Don't worry, there are 6 bullets in this automatic. That should be enough. Get ready now. Here goes. There's nobody out there.
Careful, Craig.
Porch is empty.
Are you sure?
Positive. Come on there with that flashlight. You too, Sobo.
We heard heavy footsteps, didn't we? And that weird moaning?
Yes, but there's no one here now. Flash the light around. That's it. See anything?
No. Not a thing.
Well, there may be some footprints in the driveway. Let's check.
It's hard to tell at night.
There's a good clear print.
Well, that could be mine when I got out of the car. Matter of fact, it is. I suggest, Craig, that we lock up and remain in the house until daylight. No sense taking chances.
Probably the best idea. What I don't understand is...
Good Lord, that's Miss Carlyle.
Come on, Solo, follow me. What room is she in?
The one at the end of the hall.
What happened?
The window. He was standing at the window.
Who was standing at the window, Miss Carlyle?
Maru. Yes. I've never seen anything so horrible.
You're sure it wasn't your imagination?
No, I saw his face. It was like a death mask. His lips were blue and his skin was ghostly white.
Good Lord.
Solo. You stay here with Miss Carlyle. The doctor and I are going out front. If you see or hear anything, yell.
Please don't go far.
We won't. Come on, Doctor.
What do you make of it, Craig?
I don't know what to make of it.
Do you think she really saw someone at the window?
Wouldn't be a bit surprised. Watch those porch steps. I noticed one of them's a little rickety.
What do you propose to do, Craig?
Take a look around. Stick close and keep that light swinging. That's fine.
I really think we'd be much better off if we locked all doors and windows.
Hold up.
What is it?
I thought I heard someone moving up ahead. Swing your light slowly to the left, across the road. Easy. Hold it.
Lord in heaven, it's a man staring at us.
It's LaRue.
He's running away.
Keep your light on him. LaRue! LaRue! Stop or I'll shoot!
You missed him. He's ducking in that hut.
His own hut. We've got him now. The 2 front windows and the door are the only exits. Come on.
Right.
All right. It's far enough. You take the gun, Doctor. I'll go back to some rags and some oil.
Rags and oil? What for?
I'm going to set that hut on fire.
Craig, are you out of your mind? You can't burn a man alive.
What makes you think he's alive?
He's got to be alive. We saw him running.
You still won't admit that strange things happen here on the island, will you?
Strange, yes.
All right, if you think he's alive, we'll take him alive. Get down low and crawl towards that hut. Keep your light out. Ready?
Yes.
Door of the hut's open. When we get close enough, flash your light through.
You say you can't get out any other way?
No, the door or the front windows. I'm watching them all. If this 38 doesn't stop him, nothing will.
Is this far enough?
I think so.
I'm ready if you are.
Go ahead. Flash the light through the open door.
The hut's empty.
No, it isn't. He's stretched out on the bed. See him?
Yes. What's he doing that for?
I don't know. Keep the light on him. Come on.
This may be a trap, Craig.
Be careful. I'm watching him. Hold the light steady.
Steady as I can. Are we going into the hut?
Yes. Come right behind me. Well, there he is, Doctor.
Hold the light, Craig. Let me get a look at him. Keep it on his face.
Miss Carlyle was right. His lips are blue and his skin is ghostly white.
Are you sure this man is LaRue, your foreman?
Yes.
I can't believe it.
What do you mean?
Is this the man we saw running into the hut?
Yes, of course.
And you were right. Evidently, strange things do happen on this island.
They do?
Yes, Craig. This man has been dead for 3 hours. That, my friends, was The Walking Dead.
For our next exploration into the darkness of the human mind, I have invited the celebrated exponent of the Mysterioso, Peter Laura, to be our guest. So join with us when once again we raise the shadowy curtain of the unknown and look deep into the souls of men. Until then, this is your Master of Mystery, Dr. X, leaving you with Creeps by Night.
Okay, Jim, are zombies real or not?
Well, of course they are. The thing is that we think that, and I kind of spoke about this in the first part of the show, we think everything is new. But I think things evolve, they change a little bit, but at the root are the same kind of things. And we heard the same kind of themes about zombies and The Walking Dead that we hear today. They're just modernized a little bit. And I thought that was very interesting. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
When do you think the word zombie first appeared in the English language?
I would say the 1500s.
Oh, no, much later than that.
Okay. I don't know.
How about 1810, when historian Robert Southey mentioned it in his book, The History of Brazil? That was the first time that the word was used. Now, the word was used as part of the Haitian word, which is zambé, and that is something totally different. Actually, zambé means spirit of the dead.
Interesting. Interesting.
But the first time it was used in the English language was in 1810 by Robert Southey.
That's interesting to me. I would have thought maybe it had been earlier, but I guess that would make sense. It's interesting factoid on the etymology of the word zombie.
Yes. The idea of it, too, is a little different than people think. It was hundreds of years ago, slaves were taken to Haiti and forced to work very hard on farms. And they weren't treated very well. They didn't get paid and they weren't allowed to even go home. And so these are kind of where the folktale grew, because people would disappear to these, for lack of a better word, work farms and end up working to death. And that's kind of where the history of zombies came from. And of course, then it just became folklore. But if you talk to some of the Haitians, they don't consider it folklore. That to them, zombies are a real thing.
Well, it was interesting. I mentioned him something. It must be on my mind today about 4 times in this episode. But Brad Steiger, I had interviewed him, and he did a book, one of his books, and probably multiple books, because he was the most prolific writer in the history of these types of books on the paranormal and the supernatural. But one book that dealt with zombies talked about actually a zombification process, that essentially a person would be drugged. And it's in one, I don't know if it's Haitian culture or or some culture in that part of the world where you typically associate with voodoo and hoodoo and so forth, but that a person would be given this drink or something and they would almost literally become a zombie. So in a manner of speaking, zombies are not totally fiction.
They are not. And if you listen to our story, one of the things that they mentioned was grave dirt. You remember that reference?
Yes.
Well, today's voodoo priests have a magic powder, and according to legend, this powder, if ingested, puts the person completely in another person's control.
Yes, yes.
Is that a zombie, technically?
Yeah, it is. And if you think about it, the word zombie has even taken another meaning in our society today with technology. For example, people can take over these bot networks and these smart devices, and they can basically make them zombies and turn them and do these denial of service attacks and things, these hackers. So not only is there such a thing as real zombies, human zombies, but people are turning machines into zombies that literally attack other machines.
I have another question for you.
Yes.
When do you think the first real zombie film was made?
Okay. Now, I'm thinking in this silent era, the first talkie was The Jazz Singer in 1927. So I will say a few years before that, 1922.
Well, actually, the very first zombie film was made in 1932, and it was called White Zombie.
Oh, okay.
And it was all about these creatures that had been zapped by some master who was then able to take and control other people's actions. That was in 1932, but everybody that answers that question usually says 1968, Night of the Living Dead.
No, I knew better than that. But yeah, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. The funny thing is that everybody talked about the Night of the Living Dead, which is obviously a very important movie. But I was more familiar first with Dawn of the Dead, which came out, I think, something like a dozen years later, because when I was a kid, I saw it at the drive-in. Oof. And that was the one where the zombies, these people were against the zombies and they were in a mall. And I think there was a little bit of commentary on mall culture of the 80s and those kind of things. All I remember was this poor person that was sitting in one of those blood pressure cuffs, they have in stores. And he got attacked by zombies and he got eaten by zombies simply because he could not get out of the cuff in enough time. That's my visual from that movie. But that was actually, I saw that movie before I saw the original Night of the Living Dead, which is the one everybody thinks about.
Yeah, but it wasn't the first, and certainly not the first reference either, as we learned earlier in 1810. So it just amazes me that a lot of people think, and no offense, but the younger generation thinks that zombies are part of their generation, and it isn't. They have been around a lot longer than that. So are you ready for another tidbit here?
Yes.
Another question for you?
Yes, I am. Bring it along. I'm bound to get one right sooner or later. Maybe.
True or false, Jim? The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has jumped on the zombie bandwagon with a post on their website in May 2011 called Preparedness 101 via Zombie Apocalypse. True or false?
That is true.
It is true. When I found that this week when I was preparing for this, I was shocked. So they have a plan for a zombie apocalypse. How about that?
Yeah, and it's if you think about zombies, it's really terrifying because of the idea of dead people reviving and attacking you. It's very repulsive. And then then it really gets twisted when you think about, could this be maybe one of your loved ones who has passed is going to come back and try to attack you, and will you have to try to defend yourself? I mean, it really gets into some pretty heavy stuff. And I know that this fascination with zombies has to say there's some kind of psychoanalysis that could go with it, and I'm sure somebody has done multiple theses on what it really means, why we're so fascinated with the idea of zombies. I don't know what it is, but it's sure creepy.
It is. All right, I got another true or false for you.
Ready.
Zombie caterpillars, real, or did Ron make them up?
I think they're real.
They are real. And what it turns out is that these caterpillars eat the leaves of a certain tree, a certain fungus, and immediately they are zombified. They climb up the nearest tree and they kind of die. And when they die, their bodies break down and the fungus gets to fall back to the ground and the whole process starts over again. That is a zombie caterpillars. They eat the wrong thing and they help preserve this fungus's life.
There you have it. Even in nature, there are zombies. So one thing we've established today, that zombies are real. They're not just a figment of our imagination.
They are very much real, whether they're coma-induced or fungal-induced, they are real. And along the same lines, I don't know, have you ever heard of zombie ants?
Oh, I've definitely heard of zombie ants, yes.
Yes. Well, those are insects that are also infected with a fungal parasite, but it's different. These creatures bore into the ant's noggin and are controlled by the parasites. They can control their movements, where they go. And so they force the ants to crawl up on plants where they stay put. And again, when they die, their infectious fungal spores rain down on other ants below, spreading the contagion far and wide. Now, that one, if you actually Googled zombie ants, they show you a picture of this with a cable, for lack of a better word, that stuck in the back of their head. And you could see how they lead these ants around. It's bizarre.
Ugh. Yuck.
But hey, those are my zombie facts of the day.
There you have it. Well, man, I feel like I've learned a lot. This has been very educational, Ron.
Well, at least fun.
Yes, absolutely fun, as it always is with you.
The last question I'd have for you, Jim, about our show is, what did you think of it? I mean, overall, I will have to say, I know the quality wasn't great on it, and I went to some great lengths to restore it to a listenable quality, and I hope it wasn't too bad to listen to. But what did you think of the story, Jim?
Well, I think it was, let's face it, I think it was a bit stereotypical about Native peoples and those kind of things. I think it's only fair to say that.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a product of its time. But the thing is that I gotta say, and no offense, but I do think that you do see the different shows and their different quality levels. And I'm more of a suspense person, but it was interesting. I mean, it was interesting to me from the sense that it gave me this perspective on zombies and the way they've been throughout history. So I'm glad you picked it so we could talk about zombies.
I found the show fascinating for basically two reasons. One, the theatrics of it all, the drums, the chants, the sound effects, all of that in a pristine state that I think it would have been 100% better. And the other thing was the storytelling aspect of it, the way that it made you visualize the zombie running right there at the end towards the hut, and just the visual cues that we picked up from just dialogue. I thought that was really well done.
The other thing that I always love with these old-time radio shows, and most of them have it, especially from this era, the transatlantic accent. Now, I think we've talked about this before. Oh. Well, it's kind of like, well, darling, why don't you see what the native peoples are up to? You know, that kind of thing. It's almost British, but it's not quite British. And I guess this is the way that actors were taught at the time. And in fact, I'm looking at a post right now. TheAtlantic.com did a story a few years ago, The Rise and Fall of Katharine Hepburn's Fake Accent. And the idea, darling, what are the natives doing? What is going on here? You know, and I'm from Pittsburgh. But,
it's so
but
true.
I mean, they did have style. You got to give them that. And they were great actors. And you have to realize that 30 years from now, people are going to look back at the things we do now and laugh at them, because I think anytime when you look back in history, there's some things that are a little laughable. And they'll listen to these podcasts and say, what are these people doing? But especially mine. But
mine.
But the point is that I just love that every time I listen to one of these programs, I think they do a marvelous job, darling. But it's very interesting how they affect this accent.
Yeah, there's only been one actress that I know that talked like that all the time. That was Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Oh, yes, darling. We're old enough to remember when she used to be on Merv Griffin every week.
Yes, definitely. All right, Jim. Well, tell us all about your world of spookiness. How do we find it? Where do we go? What should we do? And more importantly, how do we do it?
Well, you can just go to jimharold.com. That's jimharold.com, jimharold.com. There you will find a cornucopia of free podcasts. You can listen to the Paranormal Podcast, which is my interview show with authors and experts on the paranormal. You can hear Jim Harold's Campfire, where people call in with their true spooky stories. Could be ghosts, could be cryptids, could be UFOs. Then Jim Harold's Crime Scene, which is my attempt at a true crime podcast I've been doing since 2011. And then, you have all the Plus Club shows, but I don't even direct new people to that. I say go for the free stuff. You can also find all of those free podcasts I mentioned on any major podcast app out there, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening to Ron's show. In terms, if you're listening as a podcast, you can hear my shows as well. So I hope you'll check it out.
And not everyone knows, but you're also an author, and all of your books are available on Amazon.
Yes, and you were an editor for me as well, 1 through 5, Campfire. And if you like true spooky tales, they're great for Halloween. They're available as paperback and on the Kindle. And the easy way to find those is just go to jimharoldbooks.com. That'll basically put you on a page at my site with the links to all of those different books, and I hope you check it out.
I'm sure they will. And I consume at least 3 or 4 podcasts a week, whether they are from the past or present ones coming out. They are always well done, well edited, and easy to listen to. And I highly recommend all of them, not just some of them, all of them.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I thank you again for having me on the show. And I really appreciate it. And I look forward to this every year.
Man, that was a fun chat. I want to thank Jim for taking the time to return this year. At the time this recording was made, all heck broke loose in Jim's life, but he still took time out to join us today. That says a lot about the man, and I, for one, want him to know how much we appreciate it. Thank you, Jim. A bit of sad news. This is the last show for the month of Spooky 2018. Not to worry though, we received so many story submissions that next week we will continue the spooky with the rest of your stories. It should be a fun show. Also, next week we will continue with our novel Anything You Can Do, read for us by Mark Nelson. There are only a few chapters left, and I'm going to guarantee you this story is about to go into overdrive. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, just head to ronsamazingstories.com and you'll find all of the links you need. Also, please help us by leaving reviews and feedback on the show. It really does help us to grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.